Welcome to the podcast of the Prison Officers Association, Britain's largest professional trade union for staff working in prisons and correctional centres, public and private mental health services trust providers, and immigration services, with nearly 35,000 members. In this episode, we look at the union's strategy for communicating with members. What tools are used? How does the NEC know the strategy is working? Here's Deputy General Secretary Mick Pimlett. Mick, what's the overall strategy for communicating with members?
I think a couple of years ago, well, maybe a little bit longer, about 5 years ago, I think the National Executive Committee determined that actually our communication it wasn't the best. We were stuck in our old ways. By the only way that we communicated was through POA circulars and branch secretary circulars. The NEC determined that actually we need to get better at communication. And this started off by modernising our website. And when we modernised our website, we then seen the opportunities that the website gave us. So we'd be able to put videos on there and so on and so on. So the website was the initial thing, but then we decided, well, actually, what we can do now is podcasts such as this. We can put videos on there. We can put links to media, and it's basically all about informing our members about what's going on nationally, but also the other way around, that our members can inform us what's happening locally within their establishments.
And all those things have been put in place, as we know. But how do you know it's working? What are the kind of critical success factors, if you like, that can reassure the NEC that they're progressing down the right path?
Yeah, so I think one thing that we have noticed recently is where we're running a number of campaigns. For example, the right to strike, 68 is too late. And when we're asking members to contribute to these campaigns, we've noticed that the response from members has actually improved a hell of a lot. But one thing that we've also noted as well is that through the medium of Twitter or X or Facebook, we are able to monitor what our reach is and the amount of people who are viewing these videos and these posts on social media. And actually, it's increased year on year. I think in the last 12 months, I think the reach has improved by over 100%. So Tom, who works on our website, he's able to get us them figures, and they are very, very, very positive.
I'm sure listeners will be thinking, well, that's great, but how does the union coordinate the various social media strands there are? Because there are so many, it can be quite dazzling. Is there a mechanism for making sure that everyone's pulling in the same direction at the same time?
Yeah, so basically what we've now introduced on the POA was we introduced a communications meeting, which we hold every 2 weeks on a Friday morning, whereby myself will attend, Dave Todd from the NEC, Terry McCarthy as the press officer for the POA, along with yourself, Neil Finley from Unity Consulting, Charlie Allen from our parliamentary. We also have the support staff, Helen, who has responsibility for Gate Lodge, and so on, so on. So basically, everyone's got a little bit of input into communication will attend these meetings. And on these meetings, we have a strategy whereby we're going to look at what we're going to be doing over the next 12 months. So, for example, we will know that the pay review body will make an announcement just before April next year. So we need to get our social media ready for that. We also know when typical things are going to happen in Parliament, when there's going to be a debate that affects our members. So we can contribute to that, and we can reach out to MPs to have their say on our behalf, really.
Right. So it sounds like this comprehensive strategic approach is delivering results for the union. How do you see it developing? I mean, there are new social media platforms like TikTok, of course, wasn't around 4 or 5 years ago when the strategy first came to Earth. I don't think the union is active, say, on Instagram, which is something that a lot of people look at. How do you see the union meeting the challenges of new and diverse social media going forward?
Yeah, exactly. It's as you say, social media is constantly developing, and as I previously stated, we tend to concentrate on Facebook and Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. However, our young members committee have indicated that actually a lot of our young members do not use Facebook or Twitter, and they would prefer to use things such as TikTok or Instagram. So that is something that we will consider in the future, and it's actually responding to what our members want, really, and that's way and how we can improve our reach out to our members. So yeah, constantly looking at ways that we can improve. But I must admit, I'm no expert on this social media type of stuff. But yeah, as long as we get the benefits for our members and the benefits for the organisation, yeah, we'll continue changing.
If you've enjoyed a POA video, listened to one of these podcasts, engaged in any way with the union online at X or Facebook, accessed the POA website, or responded to a call for action associated with a POA campaign, then that is the POA communication strategy in action. But these things do not just happen. We hear now from the creative team that sit behind the podcasts, videos, website, and campaigns. Well, listeners, with me in the room, as it were, today, we have a collection of kind of social media and communications wizards, I would say, present company excluded, I would hasten to add. We have Tom from Plus Purple, we've got Greg from Consequential Films, and we've got Neil from Unity Consulting. And gents, perhaps the place to start is to kind of describe for listeners what each of your contributions are to the POA's communication strategy. Tom, could we start with you? Because I think your main area of concern is the website, and you've seen it develop from a very small acorn to a very significant oak tree, I think.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm a graphic and website designer. I've worked in the industry for probably over 25 years, I think it is now, and I've worked with the POA for 15 years. So as you can imagine, in that time, quite a lot has changed. Well, for everybody, but also the POA. Looking back, I think we've created 3 generations of the POA website. We've rebranded the organisation, so all the logos and what have you that you see now, that's all changed in that time. We obviously develop conference graphics year after year, and I think we've sort of expanded the way that we communicate. So it started out from the website, and we've expanded obviously into different to platforms. But I think just taking you back to the early days, it was just a really simple job from my perspective. It was just about putting up the traditional forms of content, which are just all the text-based circulars and branch secretary circulars and press releases, and just having those listed on the website. And if that was done, then job done. That was a tick. And I remember looking back at some of the stats from the early days, and I think we had about 200 monthly visitors. They were all desktop computers. I think there might have been a couple of early mobile brave website viewers, but of course things have changed substantially since then. We'll get onto it. We've introduced all sorts of different sorts of content now. One of the early ones I remember was a big thing, just getting the POA Gate Lodge online, just as a digital magazine, not just the paper magazine that's delivered to branches. But then of course we've expanded into video, and we've got podcasts like this. We've got a long form video from Greg, and now we're harnessing social media. So there's more to say, but that's just a little bit of a snapshot of me and the history.
Gosh, and Neil, Unity Consulting is a well-established organisation, certainly north of the border in Scotland. But what do you bring to the table for the POA?
Yeah, we're a not-for-profit social enterprise. We do campaigning work with trade unions, charities, and community groups. And we were originally working with the POA in Scotland, helping them with media and campaigning. And then we were asked if we would take over the media function for the POA nationally, and we're now going to be working with POA in Northern Ireland as well. There's 3 of us in our team. We have various skills, knowledge, and experience to bring. I was formerly a member of the Scottish Parliament for 10 years and a councillor for 9 years before that. My colleague Tommy Kane has got a doctorate in social policy research, and Michael Sharp was formerly the General Secretary of the Scottish Labour Party, so has been very heavily involved in policy development and organisational work behind the scenes of a big organisation. So we bring those 3 different things together, and we've been working with the team at the POA to elevate the media and communications, manage some of the campaigning work that the union does, and help develop some of the materials, and really work with everybody on the call today and the others. And it's a big team who come together and to develop the POA's communication. Everybody's got a different role to play. but it works very well, and I think we've gelled together really well. And one of the key things is that we meet regularly to discuss what's going on, what's coming down the line, and so that we're all well prepared and we all know what's going on.
Thanks very much. And Greg, of course, anyone who's watched through any medium one of the POA's videos or films have you and Consequential Films to thank for that. But what's the story behind the screen, as it were?
Yeah, so I've basically been a videographer. I operate under the moniker of Consequential Films and have done for about just over 20 years, not quite as long as Tom. And I've been working with the POA for just probably about 8 or 9 years now, which originally, as Tom said, I was brought in to, I think Steve wanted to have some good sort of a good way of telling the story of the POA. So it started off as a sort of backward looking history film, which we called Where We're From and Where We're Going. And I said to Steve at the time, "Don't hand me a behemoth like that again." It was an epic job, and it involved meeting a hell of a lot of very interesting characters from across the history of the POA and former NEC members and so on. So that opened up my eyes to a lot of things. And I said to Steve then, I'm much better really with campaign films and stuff about how we're going about where we're going, if you like. So that's what I've been up to. And it's a range of stuff that I provide content for, from sort of conferences to sort of more in line with Neil and Unity and the grid and stuff. So, more sort of strategic approach, covering all sorts of things from Durham and Tolpuddle to parliamentary committees, and obviously anything connected to the phases of the different campaigns that we're in, whether it's 68, the right to strike, health and safety, pensions, you name it. So I'm kind of gun for hire in terms of campaigns these days.
So, I mean, I think we can already see from what we've talked about so far that having a clear strategic objective or set of strategic objectives, it involves thinking about how we communicate those to the membership and to stakeholders outside of the membership. But one of the things I'm interested in is to kind of explore how we know that what we do works. I mean, for example, from my point of view, one of the podcasts we recorded on the Manston situation a couple of years ago ended up getting quoted by MPs in a debate in the House of Commons. So we knew that they'd been listening to the podcast and that we were influencing their thinking. I think that was a significant moment, because we thought, hang on, we've got an impact here, perhaps wider than we thought. But how do we know that what we do works? I suppose perhaps Neil, your best place to give an overview on that.
Ultimately, we know what it works when we deliver. We help the union deliver for its members, and if you look at the last while, we saw things like the campaign for PAVA to be introduced into youth estate being successful, the stab vests and slash vests being introduced. There's going to be a pilot for tasers. There's been, reasonable, I would say, not enough, but reasonable pay increase a few years back. This year's certainly not a pay increase that we want, but the union will continue to campaign on that. The membership of the POA is increasing in different sectors, like certainly private sector, immigration services, and the like. So, and another real evidence of the union's campaigning work was the winning the exemption for on visas for the overseas prison officers. So these are things that show you that the campaigns that the union is running are being successful, and we're helping deliver for members. There's a lot more to do, a hell of a lot more to do, but we can see that there has been successes.
Sure. And I mean, Tom, I suppose in some cases, this is an easier question for you to answer than the rest of us, because you'll have metrics showing the increased use, increased reach of various social media tools and website access.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I was saying about way back when we had a couple of hundred visitors per month on the POA website, but it's interesting to see that compared with what we're doing today. So I think in the last year, just some of the metrics. So just in terms of our video views, we've increased by 70% up to over 40,000 views. For things like social media, our engagements have increased in the last year by over 150%. So I think we're up to just over 61,000 engagements. And then just social media in general, we've doubled it. I think we've more than doubled it in the last year, and we're up to 5 million views over the last year from just under 2.5 million. So I think, yeah, as you say, just the cold hard numbers we can see, that's a metric that we can look at. So we can see that members are engaging more. It's not just about the numbers, it's about what that represents. It's about members engaging with what we're posting, they're sharing the messages, and they're supporting the campaigns. So, the union's voice just from those metrics is definitely growing.
And Greg, when one of your films is published and disseminated, I suppose the way you know it's working is because people stop you and say, "That was good. I enjoyed
Yeah.
that."
Definitely, yeah. Direct feedback's good. I'm disappointed with Facebook these days because you can't see the number of views. It used to be my favourite sport, looking in to see how many views have we had, how quickly. And so Tom very kindly now gives me that information privately. Just sends me an email now and again because it's sort of, it does. It's nice to see that it's getting. Obviously, views is important, but obviously, like that direct feedback shows that people are actually getting it and watching things through. Like Tom says, the diagnostics of people watching things rather than just clicking on them and clicking away. I mean, for this year's conference, being tasked with actually putting together a significant film about the successes and progresses to directly show members at conference, a year in the life. This is what we've been doing in all these different areas, including the things that we've talked about that Tom's mentioning. So yeah, I think there are definitely sort of tangible results that we're getting from members, but also from members of the public. I would say that it's more of a discussion. Obviously, our work is getting through when you're having sort of discussions in the pub with people about prison officers where you really weren't before, and due to some of the great use of some of the terrible stories that have come through in order to turn them into something positive in a campaigning sense for the POA.
Are there particular things that have had an impact, particular successes or highs? I mean, Neil, you ran through a kind of litany of campaigning successes that collectively all of us and the union and all the union activists have been able to make progress towards. But from amongst that, is there one in particular that you draw out that particularly represents the effectiveness of the union's communications strategy?
Well, at the moment, we developed a bit of toolkit for the campaign on the Second Employment Rights Bill and right to strike, and that went out to members. And one of the actions that we asked members to do was to contact members and branches was to contact their MP to put pressure on them to support the union's campaign on the right to strike. And we have a postcard campaign running alongside that, and there's QR codes that we can click on, all that kind of stuff. I think to date we're heading for, and this is only in the first few weeks this has happened, that we're probably heading towards 100 MPs that people have engaged with, and that's excellent. We're getting responses back all the time from members who have said, well, I live in wherever it is, Luton or somewhere. I've contacted my MP, and here's the response. Now we are publicly quite openly putting out social media saying MPA supports our campaign, thank you, well done. But MPB doesn't, and shame on them for not supporting our campaign. And that's publicly holding people to account, and that's perfectly right and legitimate to do that. So it kind of shows, it definitely shows the strength of getting member involvement in these campaigns and members driving them, because the response so far has been really good, and hopefully that will continue over the summer.
Great. And Greg, any of the many films that you've produced for the union that you thought actually that was a good one, a particularly good one?
One of the more impactful aspects has been a more of an internal thing with regards to the retired members campaign, which has really got traction. I mean, they showed a film at this year's conference, and I actually wasn't there to see it. I was doing something else and interviewing someone, and came in at the break, and people were saying, "Oh, that's amazing! I must share this information." And it seems that it's a very necessary aspect of the service that the POA provides to its members is the aftercare. Where when the job's over, and I think we've made that look quite appealing from some of the films we've made, and by all accounts, that's having quite a large impact, and they've really managed to grow their membership quite significantly as a result, I think, of people being able to see what they're missing. There's some sort of sentimental films as well we've made this year. The one about renaming Simpson House, for example, brought together a really great group of people to speak well of Joe, which was very rewarding. And again, one of those ones where you get a lot of feedback. But anything concerning at the moment, it feels like in honour of Joe as well, the sort of young members stuff. So the stuff around Toll Puddle, and this year I'm looking forward very much to Durham Miners Gala and sort of showing that, that visibility of the POA amongst the wider trade union movement, and that kind of get people really quoting back to the trade union mantras of unity is strength, which I found very much at this year's conference with some of, especially the young members that I was speaking to. Those kind of stand out. But yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time on that one discussing the work of the union. So a lot of it is kind of communicating what we're doing as much as anything else, and on behalf of members, increasing that visibility and that public awareness.
And Tom, from your point of view, I mean, the numbers you quoted just in themselves are a great testament to the effectiveness of this part of the communication strategy. But have there been particular issues where you've looked at how the media story has played, how the social media trends have gone, and thought, yeah, we're riding a wave here, as it were?
I think the campaign that Neil just mentioned has been really successful. I find it personally really interesting. I think if something interests and grabs you, then I think you can see that it's going to cut through with the public, and the stats are showing that. And actually holding MPs to account on a specific issue, it sort of opens that door, and the mystery of MPs somewhere else. You can actually see their faces and see who's supporting the campaign and who isn't. That's been really interesting, and it's those sorts of campaigns. And I think the ones that harness the news stories, sometimes they're not very nice news stories, but they do allow us to tell the story of members and to make a powerful case for the campaigns. So they're really, successful. So, and I think that's what it's been about. It's been, I think, where we started, it was just about getting the voice out there, but it was a bit of a scattergun approach. Whereas now there's more coordination with the events that are happening, whether it be news stories, but also just the cycle, the political cycle. We're able to attach the campaigns to what's going on, and that makes them really, really relevant.
One of the issues that to pick up on there, and it's a very, very, very sensitive issue, was around the terror attacks at Franklin and last year, and that was it's a hugely emotive and powerful story there about the bravery of the officers there, and obviously a number were injured and badly injured in the attack. But it's very, very important that these kind of cases are handled very sensitively, and that we respect the wishes of the people involved, their families, and their branch and their colleagues. And so, it's not all gung ho. Here's a media story. Let's get out there and tell it to the world. But some stories have to be handled very, very sensitively indeed. The prison service, as prison officers continue to tell us, is kind of a bit forgotten about in terms of in public psyche, because it is literally locked up behind a wall. And our job is to try and sort of get the stories out there into the public domain to get a greater understanding of what prison officers actually face every day, what they do, their value to society, and the essential role that they play. So there's a definite balancing act between respecting people's privacy and sensitivity, but also getting the message out there. Because if we don't get the public on side, then it's going to be a struggle to get the politicians on side, because we know that they react to pressure. So we have to put the pressure on them to deliver for prison officers. I can't emphasise enough the importance of members being involved in this. We asked members for any photographic evidence that we could get about the conditions in some of the prisons, the appalling state of some of the prison estate, and we were able to turn that into a good campaign around issues of privatised prison maintenance. So when we're appealing to members to provide information or testimony or photographs or quotes or whatever, then just a plea to members to do that, because it is so helpful. The final thing is, at the moment, the Right to Strike Second Employment Rights Bill campaign is running. That will likely end probably start of August, and well, it looks like we'll have a new Prime Minister by then, so maybe the new Prime Minister will be more sympathetic to the right to strike than certainly the previous incumbent. Um, that will be something that the POA hopes to present thousands of postcards to at number 10 Downing Street at some point in the future. So if the branches have got cards, get them filled in, ask your colleagues, ask your family, ask your granny, ask your dog, anybody who can fill in the postcard, get it filled in, back to the POA, and we'll take a wheelbarrow full of them to, well, it looks like it might be Mr. Burnham.
The POA's use of new technology in communicating with members seems impressive and extensive, but, as Mick Pimlett tells us, it will never replace the role of the personal contact provided by POA local representatives.
And some people, I've heard it described by some people as saying that social media is like a magic bullet, a silver bullet that actually eliminates all the problems and challenges of communicating with members. But it's there to support the local reps and the area reps, isn't it, rather than to replace them?
Oh, 100%. At the end of the day, you cannot take away the support that the NEC give to our branch officials and the support that branch officials give to members. I think it just works alongside the work that our branch officials and national officials do on a daily basis, and it actually supplements it. So sometimes we can give out a lot of information regarding whatever issue it is, and then branch officials are kept informed, members are kept informed, and they do not really need to ask questions sometimes, but we always appreciate questions from our members, as we know from the Ask the Chair podcast that we do every month,
Yeah.
which is quite interesting. But yeah, it's about being open and just communicate with members, which actually makes our membership stronger, I believe.
My thanks to Deputy General Secretary Mick Pimlett, Tom from Plus Purple, Greg from Consequential Films, and Neil from Unity Consulting. More information about the full range of the union's work on behalf of its members can be found at poauk.org.uk, where there is also the information you need to join the union should you not already be a member. Thank you for listening. We hope you have enjoyed what you have heard and will join us for the next episode of the POA podcast. Thank you and goodbye.